we are bringing in 3 guests from our neighboring country, India, to teach us about the new digital ID system that the Sri Lankan government is planning to implement. What is MOSIP in a nutshell?
Understand the core concepts within that sector, and then bring those core concepts in the open source for people to adapt and take it. That's the core of MOSIP.
India has a system called Aadhaar in its digital ID platform, and it's one of the largest platforms on earth. Are we getting a copy of that?
It is not the same as Aadhaar.
You need to make money somehow. So how does that happen?
Majority of our funds today come from philanthropic funds. You build one highway and then you let everybody pass through that highway. You are not going to build that repeatedly. Oh, I failed building one. Let me dug it out. I'm going to build one more one.
Once this system is implemented, our engineers can come in and build modules for it.
Absolutely. That's exactly the goal, right?
So what are the countries this system has already been implemented and running?
We do have a presence in about 26 plus countries. About 121 million plus registrations that have been done across the world.
If you want right now, you could go in front of a computer, log into the Philippines system and get somebody's information out from it. Can you?
So that's not how open source works.
Okay. A very important database related to the drug distribution system in Sri Lanka has been erased. Is there a possibility that something like that can happen in this system?
Even Pentagon gets hacked. That's a way to put that through, right?
What you waiting for? I think we're ready to rock.
Hello and welcome to the SLVLOG latest podcast. So I am here today hosting the show for you, and we are bringing in 3 guests from our neighboring country, India, to teach us about the new digital ID system that the Sri Lankan government is planning to implement. So I welcome Sasikumar Ganeshan, Resham Chugani, and Varaniya Selvaraja. Did I pronounce them correctly?
Yes, Sanjay.
Okay.
I'm Sasi Kumar. I'm head of engineering, MOSIP.
I'm Varaniya, product owner, MOSIP.
Yeah, I'm Resham Chugani, product manager, MOSIP.
Okay, welcome to the podcast. So I want to shed some light to the Sri Lankan audience of what's happening, what will happen in the digital ID projects that the Sri Lankan government is going to introduce. So there's a lot of hype here, a lot of misconceptions, a lot of matters that people are assuming certain things that how this system will actually implement in Sri Lanka. So I want to clear those doubts, and I too have some doubts about the data and all. So I'll just start with the very basic question. Any one of you can answer. What is MOSIP in a nutshell?
Okay. So MOSIP in general stands for Modular Open Source Identity Platform. It's a project, open source project, hosted out of a university in India, Bangalore. The inspiration for it is potentially that somewhere around 2009 or in the 2000s, there are a lot of countries which attempted digital ID, and there are very few countries which ended up succeeding it too well. Mm-hmm. There are some countries which succeeded, but not too well enough that it could make a digital transformation within the country. So the idea was to learn from the countries which have been successful, like from Estonia, India, and so many others, understand the core concepts within that sector, and then bring those core concepts in the open source for people to adapt and take it. That's the core of MOSIP in its essence. I hope that clarifies you.
Yeah, okay. So digital ID system that we are going to implement is an open source system called MOSIP. That's why you are coming into this discussion today. So I have to start from the very basics. So what is an open source system and what is the opposite of it?
Okay. So in the software world, unlike the hardware world, in software world, there are 2 principles that exist. One is every single piece of code that you write, which is the instruction that you give the computer what to do, how to store, what should, and to whom to give the data, is all written in a concept called code. It's just like our language that we speak today. And what we are trying to do is, can we put out that information in the open, because we are expecting governments to adopt, we are expecting people to validate and verify this instruction that we are telling the computer what to do. So we want to keep that in the open, which means it's available in the internet for anybody to go look at it, download it, modify it, run it for their own purposes. So in a sense, open source is kind of a freedom that you have. You're not buying it from us. You're literally taking it from the internet that is available to you. You're verifying, validating, and you could use it for your own purpose.
Okay. So one of the major criticisms or the major speculation about what is surrounding the talk surrounding this platform implementation that the Sri Lankan government is going to implement is that we are taking something from India and India has control over it, and we are going to set it up as our major data hub for the government. Even though I know what's actually going on behind the scenes, but I would rather ask you to explain it. So India has a system called Aadhaar in its digital ID digital ID platform, and it's currently catering to over 1.3 billion people, and it's one of the largest platforms on earth. Are we getting a copy of that, or is MOSIP different? Any one of you can answer, maybe the others can add to that.
Varanya, you should answer.
It's different, actually. It is not the same as Aadhaar. We have get inspiration from MOSIP, Aadhaar, but MOSIP is completely different, and as she said, it's from the open source.
So the Aadhaar is closed source. Aadhaar is a proprietary platform.
Yes, it's government proprietary, and any other countries can't use it, so that is different. And also I understand the misconception where it is coming from. So basically, I am from Sri Lanka and I interact with multiple people on this. So from that endpoint, they think since it is coming from IIIT Bangalore, it is related to coming from Aadhaar, but it is not the case. People from different countries also contributing to the code of the MOSIP. So it is not only from India.
Why did you think that you should develop a software like this? What was the motive?
I can take that. So the motive is, as we speak, like Shashi was just mentioning, there are millions of people across the globe, across the world, who lack a legal and a verifiable identity, right? And many years back, a lot of countries set out to build ID platforms, but not every nation could succeed. The idea here is to provide a platform that a country can pick up. It's open source, like Shashi mentioned. So you pick it up, you customize it based on the country requirements, and you implement it. So the core difference here is, would you recommend a country to actually start building a system, a foundational digital ID system from scratch, or would you actually recommend a country to pick up a platform which is available in open source, which they could customize based on their needs, have the ID issued? And I think the essence here is providing access to rights and services to the citizens eventually, right? So having an ID is not sufficient. So let's say the ID is issued, but after that, right? So the motive here, or the motivation here, was to reach out to the sections of the society who are most vulnerable and unreachable, and to ensure that rights and services could be actually delivered to them. So that's the core motivation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in order to sustain an organization like MOSIP and to hire developers and obviously pay you guys salaries and all that, you need to make money somehow. So how does that happen?
Okay. So MOSIP is hosted out of IIITB as a not-for-profit organization. Majority of our funds today come from philanthropic funds. So across the globe, from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, BMGF, we get some money. We get from NORAD, we get from Tata Trust. A lot of these people who are philanthropically motivated provide a certain amount of money to us to build the system and keep us up and running. And if you look at the overall thing, they could have given this to each country and build this identity and then continued this. But in an overall sense, as an open source entity, not for profit, a community-driven organization, takes a less money to build some massive scale applications. And all we need is just pay out salary. We're not looking at anything else in reality. So that makes it easier for the philanthropy fund to come into the system. And that is what is used predominantly. And apart from this, countries also contribute. For example, Ethiopia gave us a bunch of engineers who work with us day in, day out, and they build some part of our systems. Absolutely free. It is just Ethiopia's will and wish. They give you for like 6 months or a year, then they take away. So they can plan that. So that is another form of funding that comes to us, where we don't pay salary, but we get the work done. Okay. Right? Cambodia is another example. So these two countries have given out people. So what you see is not just our work, it's a collectively a lot of these countries also put out their engineers out there.
So as far as I understood, so this is a platform where it is the purpose of it being built is to make sure that the countries who cannot afford a large scale system implemented, to help those countries, this was funded by many philanthropists as well as freelancers and whoever's going to volunteer to build the platform and maintain it.
Yeah, small correction there. I would not say the countries cannot build it. They're like absolutely capable, right? I mean, Sri Lanka has tons of engineers who can absolutely capable people who could build it. It's not that we think we are capable and they're not capable. I think it's about collecting all the best practices and trying to put that out in the open to tell guys, if you do it like this, it seems to be we are culturally in these kind of environments, we are able to outsize and we are able to reach everybody and give 100% attendance to everybody, right? If you could keep realizing the best practices from multiple countries and continue to put that in the open, then you're actually progressing. It's like your roads today, right? You build one highway and then you let everybody pass through that highway. You are not going to build that repeatedly. Oh, I failed building one. Let me dug it out. I'm going to build one more one. Rather collect all of it, keep it in the open so that you could pick and choose what you think is necessary.
So you don't have to you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I believe, correct me if I am wrong, so I believe that since you also worked at Aadhaar at some point as one of the, may I get that from you? Can you tell us your background a little bit now? I think it's the appropriate time.
Sure. I've been the chief security architect of Aadhaar from 2009. I built majority of the security infrastructure for Aadhaar during my days. I continue to advise and help out the country in various other forms. I'm also a big-time open source propagation. So I came out, we wrote a paper on e-sign, which is used as an e-signature for entire 1.4 billion people. So there are several other works that I keep doing, and this is open source has been my passion. If we could go down and take all these best practices and learn from each country, and could continue to put that into the open source, then we could all collectively win together.
Okay.
And that's the goal.
Let me build a rationale here, because as you said, we have a lot of engineers, we have engineering companies that works with the biggest organizations in the world. And there's a question among the society, why can't we use our own firms to do this? So shall I just frame it in a way, whether you can correct me or not? So basically, I would say that with your experience and with all the engineers that are involved in other countries as well, you have built a system from the learnings of another system, which is Aadhaar, and you have built another system where you have implemented most of the learnings, and it is at a mature stage than for us to try and test out our own software. So it is an option that we could explore easily with less risk. So a country can adapt that path and go forward and make whatever the other arrangement that comes after this more successful. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It just helps you fast track the entire work because of the best practice. You put it very nicely that the idea is, can we be a little more risk-free at that? There are a lot of other experiments that Sri Lanka has to do. And maybe we should put those experiments in place and then teach the world, hey, we did this risk and we are successful, and then here is the other story. And I would love to see more Sri Lankan engineers also building such systems in the open source and then putting out to say, hey, why could you not adapt something that Sri Lanka has done?
On a side note, so let's say once this system is implemented, our engineers can come in and build modules for it. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's exactly the goal, right? Own it and run it as if it's your own. Contribute back to the world so that they could learn from Sri Lanka and then they could use that.
Perfect. So what are the countries this system has already been implemented and running? What are your learnings from that? Anyone of you?
Resham, maybe you can answer the countries that are running.
Yes, I could mention the prominent ones, the ones that we are very closely dealing with currently. So we have Morocco, we have Philippines, and we have Ethiopia. Besides this, of course, we do have a presence in about 26 plus countries, about 121 million plus registrations that have been done across the world using the MOSIP platform. But yeah, we do have other countries in various stages of pilots, different phases of the implementation as well. But yeah, these are the three major countries that we have.
Okay. So, Resham, if you want right now, you could go in front of a computer, log into the Philippines system and get somebody's information out from it. Can you?
So that, I mean, okay, so that's not how open source works.
Okay.
So again, stepping back.
I'm just paraphrasing the questions that we have here. So
Yes, absolutely. Yes, this is exactly why we are here as well. We would want to clarify that because this is a question that comes back to us from every country that we deal with. Although open source as a concept has existed for a long time now, but there is always this misconception that if it is open source, let's say the project is incubated here in IIIT Bangalore in India, but if it is implemented in Philippines or in Morocco or in Ethiopia or in any other country, there is absolutely no way that anybody from India or from MOSIP has any control over the data of that country. The servers, etc., are hosted in the country and the data remains with the country. So there's nothing that we could access from here.
So you don't have any admin access or backdoor access to it?
No, I would say we are highly driven by strong principles where privacy and security is a very, very key aspect. So we pay a lot of, we give a lot of priority to security and privacy as well as data. I know that's a question that keeps coming up in every country, right? So yes, I do not have access in a nutshell. No.
Okay. So once you set up the system, do you help to set up the system, or are you just allowing us to download it and set it up ourselves? What's the differentiation?
I can give you two examples of this. You could interact with or engage with people called the system integrators. So basically, a system integrator is a company or an entity who will have a set of technical experts who have the skill and expertise to implement the system based on the technology stack that we are built upon. So a country can take the assistance of a system integrator where we can train the system integrators and the countries to set up the system. We assist them with the pilots and then they go for a national rollout. We also had another case, if I may quote Shashi, so we had Ethiopia, right? Where we did not even know that they had picked up our code from the open source. They had implemented it to a certain extent. And when they actually had some requirement of assistance is when they reached out to us. And that's when we actually got to know that, okay, Ethiopia has also analyzed our code and, they are in the process of implementing it. So we do provide the support to train them and to help them with pilots and implementations. But that's not a mandate. Like Ethiopia started off by themselves. They were like we just some time back spoke about, is a country capable of building an infrastructure by themselves. Ethiopia did that, right? So they picked up our code and they actually went into the implementation phase. So of course they did reach out for assistance and we are very closely collaborating with them.
Okay,
now.
Okay, it's clear. So I don't know whether you can answer this or you know how to answer this, but anyway, I'll just ask it. I'll put it out there. Has anyone approached you from the Sri Lankan government side and asked you to help us getting it implemented, or they just ask for the code? Or I mean, we don't have to even call you to get the code. It's up there. It's open source. You can download it and set up. But have anyone from Sri Lankan government asked you to set it up for us?
No. Sri Lanka has so the way it works within MOSIP is, if you think you need our assistance, remember, as I said, the money comes to us for building the system and supporting countries. And if a country signs up a memorandum of understanding with us, then they basically have an access to call up me or my team, anybody, and then question, hey, I have this problem. Can you help me solve this problem? Here is my engineer who would call you up and tell you what his exact problem is. Tell him or help him. It could be over a chat. It could be over an email, other means. So it is just that the MOU allows you my time to be given for your support. Otherwise, you're of your own. You could pick the code. You have a clear written documentation already available online, which you could follow. There are videos and other things that helps you out as well. And there's a larger community where you can also go and ask questions. You don't need to ask questions to me. You can go and ask the questions in the community. People from Ethiopia would answer it. People from Cambodia would answer it. A lot of others would also answer it. So in case you think in order to run a system, you need the creators of the system some point of help during your initial days or other ways. Then you can reach out through us, and that is when you're doing memorandum of understanding. So there's no money involved, there is no cash transfers involved, there's nothing involved. The MOU just allows you to get access to the time internally of our engineers for you to answer it over email. Even then, we don't have access to your system. We have no idea where you're deployed. We have no idea who's working with you. That's the nature of how the open source works.
Great. So let's say we implement the system and we get some assistance from you in the very first few weeks or first few months or first few phases. And then we have total control in our platform where you will have zero access to it. Once that initial phase is done, we could say, okay, from this point onwards, you will not be given any access beyond this point. And then we can start adding our citizen data into the platform. So once that happens, if anyone has a very slight doubt, even a slight doubt, whether these guys can access the data of our citizens, I would say, as a person who does coding and had some previous software projects under me, that since it is open source, we can absolutely see what's going on, what's the code actually does. But I would like to hear it from you. Is there any way that there can be some sort of a backdoor implemented without us knowing?
Okay. So it is literally closer to impossible for us to put a backdoor and you not noticing it. Remember, the infrastructure is handled by you. For example, when you're going to run your systems, you would set up something called a security operations center. The whole work of a security operations center, firewalls and everything, is to say who are from where and from which network people can actually go into your machine. And you have absolute rights to tell only the IP addresses that belongs to Sri Lanka is allowed. Only the users who belong to Sri Lanka is allowed. You could absolute control over that. And that devices are commercial devices that you're buying and deploying. It's not the devices that we supply that you need to worry. So it's like just like a land, right? In your house, to enter into the land, if you have a large land and if you want to enter in, there is a gate. The physical gate is still owned and operated by you. And who has the key to it? It's you and your government and your people who are authorized in that place. Nobody else can actually physically get in there. Similar way in the network as well, there is a perimeter that is set up, and the perimeter controls everything that's needed.
Okay. So let's say once the data is populated, we might get a certain issue that we need your help after, let's say, 1 year or 2 years down the line. In that case, if we were to get your help, in that point, will you have access to our data?
Waranya, you can answer this.
No, Sanjay. So we will not have the access for the data. It goes in such a way that the country can ask us the questions. We would be suggesting them the approach what they can follow to do it. But we will not get the access from the data. It will never be the country also during the, as she said, like MOU signing and all. It's very clear that we can't get any data from country, so it cannot be done.
Okay, in a technical standpoint, I would, obviously you guys know this, but anyway, I can suggest that the production system is where the actual data is, and we could use a copy of the system files only without the data in order for us to have a mutual development work done with collaboration with you, where the actual data is not present in that copy of the system. It's a pre-production system where we can do the amendments there and then push the code to the actual production system. So if it can be done in that way, then we would have no risk for the actual data that we are hosting on the platform. So is that correct, Shashi?
Oh, you're absolutely right on. When you start developing, you're going to have a development system. You're going to have a testing environment. You're going to be having a user acceptance environment. These are places where real data doesn't exist. It's all fake data that you're going to use. These are the right places for you to reach out to us. Your production systems, we should never give access to anybody. It is just for you and your people, and you should make that decision within the government.
So if any data leaks happen, it's from our side, right? We have to grab someone from the neck from our side.
Absolutely, the production has no access to anybody other than your department and your people.
Okay. So
and I believe it.
few years ago, one of the Sri Lankan government systems was, I wouldn't say hacked. We don't know the exact reason how it happened, but a very important database related to the drug distribution system in Sri Lanka, right, has been erased. So there are a lot of theories about it, how it happened. Is there a possibility that something like that can happen in this system, and is there a way to recover the stuff that's been missing?
Okay. So it would be dangerous for me to tell nothing would happen.
Nothing
We
is
all work in
100% secure. That's fine. Even the Pentagon gets hacked, so don't worry about it. Yeah.
yeah, even Pentagon gets hacked. That's a way to put that through, right? So when there is a persistent hacker who is persistent about hacking your systems, there are multiple ways to do it. We try to shield as much as possible, but remember, you're dealing with a very dynamic environment, and software is a very dynamic environment. So things could go wrong. There is no doubt. It's not intentional. It could be unintentional. It could go wrong. So the best advice that we have been telling the governments is keep a backup of your data to a great extent. Within our software, we have done quite a lot of cryptography to ensure that people don't get access to the data directly.
Even if they are able to get port the
Look at your
database out,
database.
they cannot look at the data.
Yes. And the keys are stored in a device called HSM, which is like an extremely sensitive, secure device.
Is
And
it
which is
quantum
again
safe?
bought by. It's not part of MOSIP. It's not a part of MOSIP.
No,
It's
I'm
it's
asking,
it's a
is it quantum safe?
Oh, it's quantum safe. That's not yet there. You're
But
not
it will be
quantum
there
safe
in the
yet.
future, so you will be pushing
It
that
will be
update.
there eventually. Yeah, that is going to be there sooner or later. But now it's not quantum safe. But it's a device which holds the key for it. So until that device leaks out the key, which is physically closer to be impossible. But again, I will not say 100% impossible. It's closer to
Yeah,
be impossible.
if the person who's handling is corrupt or it's a social engineering attack,
Yeah.
you can't do anything about it.
You can you bribe somebody. That's the easiest way. You bribe somebody and then pick the device and walk away.
Yeah,
from
that's the thing. So
data
what
center.
people don't understand is that can happen even now, right? Whatever the system, we take it from India or we develop here, doesn't really matter. If you can bribe the
can
person,
happen.
you can still get the data out.
Yep. So that's the nature of that beast is. But otherwise, it's very difficult. You can have your backup and you can recover from your backup. We have taken care at least to ensure that people can't steal your data and then blackmail you with that. That much we have tried to put in enough controls within the system that you could have a backup and restore it or recover from an attack instantly and immediately, and it's not going to result in an identity theft instantly within the country. So we have just ensured we have learned those best practices over time, and we have enabled those features within the system. So
Have you
that's the
faced
potential.
such issues in your current implementations in Philippines, Ethiopia, and other countries? No.
No, nothing that we know of. Countries don't reveal any such
Or you don't
information.
even know that. That might happen. That those governments only know. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Great.
it's only known to that government. We know it when they reach out to us and ask us, "Hey, I'm trying to do this. How do I do this work?" And that's when we sometimes question, "Why are you doing that?" They could reveal, because of this feature we need this, because of that we need it. Otherwise, we never know what's happening.
Okay, this is a political question I'm going to ask next. Maybe, I don't know whether you know anything about it, but if you do, can comment, please. So, Indian government is giving us some sort of a grant in order to implement the system here. So they are going to bear a part of the cost. Do you know anything about that?
Okay, that's very political. I have no idea.
Okay.
I didn't know that they were giving money to implement. I thought
It's just
they were long
what I heard, so maybe I'm wrong.
happening around.
Okay.
No, I
So that's
seriously,
nothing
I
to do
don't
with you
know.
anyway, right? So it's nothing to do with the software.
They don't speak to us to decide money. We are the last people who would come to know about it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so there's a concern, even I have this concern. So there are a few biometric data that you can use in terms of authentication. You can use the fingerprint and you can use the face ID. But there's another one called iris scanning. What kind of scenarios do we need that kind of scanning, and why do we have to use that? Can't we use the system without that?
Oh yeah. Varanya, do you want to answer this question? I can add in as Varanya adds up.
Sure, Sachin. So to your yes, the MOSIP is configured in such a way that you can choose it to opt out of iris scanning also. If you want to give only one biometric, like only finger you want or only face you want, that can also be done. So these are the modalities we came thought through to think like, okay, country might need these scenarios where you have to get more accurate in identifying the person. For that, we have implemented this, but still the countries can opt out whichever the biometrics they can wanted to configure and continue on the registration.
So it is up to us to select what kind of biometric data we are going to collect and what is it used for.
Yes.
Okay.
Just to add to that, I think there is also an aspect of inclusivity here. Why do we offer multiple modalities of biometrics? It's because we're looking at ID for all, right? Nobody should be left behind. So let's say a country only implements fingerprint as a modality of biometrics, and you have a class of individuals, let's say, who are laborers whose fingerprints can't be captured, or you have old people whose fingerprints can't be captured, so they get left out, right? They get excluded. But however, as a platform, if you offer multiple modalities, so someone who doesn't have a fingerprint, you can still capture their iris scan, or you can still capture their face photograph. So it is also an aspect of inclusion, which is why the platform offers multiple modalities here.
In addition to multiple modalities, you have two-factor as well. Is it?
So it combines at the verification side, yeah, it does combine OTP. It combines fingerprint and OTP together, demographic and fingerprint, demographic and iris. So yeah, you could combine the multiple factors into it.
Okay. You said that the data is encrypted. So I would say, like, we are normally used to systems where the name of the person is not encrypted, the address is not encrypted, only the email or the password or the card number, last 4 digits are encrypted. In this case, are all of them encrypted or just the selected ones?
Yeah, principally when we started the system, that was a clear mandate for us that data leak is the biggest threat, and we want to make sure every single data that we collect from the residents or the citizens of the country, the system has to potentially encrypt it in a single go. So in its entire form, the system always remains in its encrypted state. It's not just email, not just your name. Literally every single data that you see is encrypted. It also follows very unique concepts where you can't, within the database, you can't swap me and Resham. You can't just make me as Resham for like one day and then swap it back again. Even that is impossible within the system. It will detect immediately. Impossible.
So that's my next question, actually. So does it have an audit and a forensic trail if something happens?
Yeah, you have 100% huge volume of audit and forensic trails for you to figure out every single thing that's happening within the system.
So those access can be compartmentalized and distributed among different agencies of the government. So anyone cannot act alone. Acting alone doesn't really make much sense to.
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. You have that control in the system.
Okay. Can the encryption be braked or reversed in any way?
As of now, mathematically, we have not found any way to break it. It uses today an algorithm called AES GCM 256. By the way, that algorithm specifically is quantum safe. There are other places where we use RSA 2048 in combination with AES 256 GCM. There are those are the places where it's not quantum safe, but as of now, there is nothing that is known in the industry that could break this.
Great. So can you tell us about the tech stack? What's the platform being built on, and what kind of expertise do we have here to maintain it?
Sure. Warren, why don't you pick it up?
Sure, Sachin. So the tech stack we built on is on Java, and also we are posting all our codes in the GitHub. And the whole infrastructure we have used WebSub and cluster. That's the cluster mechanism. Yeah, and maybe Sashi can add in there for some more details.
Sure. At the infrastructure level, it's called Kubernetes. Kubernetes is another open source projects which majority of your companies would be knowing and they would be already using. So that is used. And interestingly, we also use a support library called WebSub, which is the bus which transfers data between our systems, and that's from the Sri Lankan team working on a project called Ballerina. So we picked up.
We know that. Yeah.
They have done. The ballerina work is on WebSub, and we actually work closely with them, and we said we like your work, and we would take it and we would use it within
So
our
MOSIP
system.
already has a component that we have been developed by the Sri Lankan engineers.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
Okay. So are there any, I mean, with your experience in, I know that since you are the software vendor, you don't have any control over governments, but can you, do you see the need of any additional legislation and regulation introduced by the government after setting the system up?
No, after setting the system up, I think those are learnings that the countries come up. For example, there are some countries which had data protection acts, existing data protection acts, which are a little older and does not result in the right way to move digitally. So there are those countries which actually modified their act in order to support digital identifications. Because if you remember, people like you and me could just remember the passwords and use it. But if you look at, for example, my father, he can't remember even a PIN. So it's very difficult for them to operate at that scale. So for them, it was easier to give the card, show the fingerprint or show the iris. It was a little more easier for those people to use. So you need to have all forms of authentication and verification going on. So each country has to decide based on the existing regulation that they have and decide if that existing regulation is good or bad. In general, our advice has been that if it is a digital ID that you want to adapt, please ensure to look for very, very minimal information from the residents. Look at extremely simple and minimalistic information that you collect. The data quality goes up. In turn, it allows you to be very, very accurate about telling everybody, this is all I collect and this is all I can answer. So there is no need to worry about data leaks and other things in the future. So our idea is keep it minimal. Make sure your act can help you in doing that. That would be a great benefit for you to run a long time identity systems.
So I get that once the way the implementation happens is actually at the control of our engineers or our government departments. So once that implementation happens, before populating the data, of course, can you do a security audit, or is there a way that we could request a security audit to be done by you, or to learn from your previous experience in deploying this in other countries, whether it has been done correct here, or do we need any extra help from you? Is there audit or that we can do?
We usually prefer to. I think there are a lot of beautiful and knowledgeable security companies in Sri Lanka. We would prefer they do the audit and they find it. It's like any other software systems that we see today in the banks and every other place. And luckily, these engineers have access to our code. So I think they would do a pretty good job about it. If there is concerns that they rise up that, hey, we found the security problem and we want you to fix it for us, absolutely, we will be more than happy to come in and help and fix it and put it out in the open.
Or we can do it ourselves. Yes, we can do it ourselves too, right?
Oh yeah, okay. You're free to do everything that you think is necessary within your country to do it. But it would be lovely for you to, when you do it, when you have fixed something in our code, and if you think it will be useful for other countries, please contribute back so that the other countries can actually use your work.
Great. So should we be concerned about any vendor locking features, vendor locking scenarios?
Resham, you want to take it up, the vendor lock-in?
Yes. So
yes, you mean like, there is.
No, the answer is not my yes goes to Shashi. Yeah. So to specifically answer to you, vendor lock-in, since we are driven by open source, at the core level, the software doesn't come with vendor lock-in. But at the same time, I wouldn't call it vendor lock-in, but we also thrive with a community. So we also partner with multiple partners for biometric systems, for biometric devices, for deduplications and ABIS, etc. Right? So on that front, we are quite neutral when it comes to the market. We have a set of partners who are MOSIP compliant, MOSIP certified. We have a place called Marketplace, which is an online portal where the governments they're actually free to go and see the list of partners that we collaborate with, and they're free to choose between those partners. But at a core level, at a platform level, at MOSIP's platform level, you don't need to worry about being vendor locked in with the open source software.
Great. Now let's talk about the positives. What are the features or what are the benefits? Let's talk about the features first. What are the features that the system currently offers? And through those features, what are the benefits that the public can get?
Okay. So, like I said, we're driven by a lot of core principles. Security and privacy is right at the top there. I think we've spoken quite a bit. Shashi has also spoken about cryptography, encryption, and all of that. That's of prime importance. In terms of features, again, I would like to specify on inclusivity. It is driven, inclusivity drives. We are quite human centric when we are designing the technology, right? While security and privacy is of core importance, inclusivity as well is. So most of our features, when you look at it, I spoke about multimodality support, right? What about people who do not have documents? Do we exclude them? No. So our software also provides for that flexibility where you have a concept of introducer, where somebody introduces you who is a valid person. He could have you registered on the system. So there is a concept there. We also look at different forms of inclusion. Let's say a person who's culturally diverse, linguistically diverse. So we have the multi-language support. So that is also a form of inclusion. Also, when it comes to building technology, you might, it's always that, let's say you have the ID and then you need to put the ID to use. So you have to first prove yourself and have yourself verified. Now, to verify myself, the first step is maybe, I think the most common one these days is the OTP-based authentication, where I can authenticate myself and receive a service, right? But this is, again, only for people who have a feature phone. And then we have technologies where you can do a face-based authentication through our NG application. It's a wallet-based stack that we have. So, but then again, that's only for smartphone users. So we're looking at different segments, but what if I don't have a feature phone or a smartphone? How do I get excluded? No, you don't get excluded because you had provided your biometrics at the time of registration. So let's say you walk into a SIM store, you want to purchase a SIM. Today, what do? You just provide your national ID, you provide your fingerprint, and you can avail the service. So I don't need to hold a feature phone or a smartphone. I can just provide my biometrics and avail the service. So by means of technology, we are trying to see how far we can cover different segments of the society and ensure services could be delivered. So that's another form of inclusivity. So I would say inclusion, again, is something that drives most of the features that we have built so far.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's a broad question. What is the scope of the platform? Where does it end and where? So let's say there's a specific government institution like Sri Lanka Railways, for example. So Railway has their own system, and you have the authentication platform. And how will the two systems communicate with each other?
Okay, in terms of the scope, I can answer that. When you talk about the core MOSIP identity platform, it deals with ID lifecycle management in simple terms, which is about the issuance of the ID and then putting the ID to use, right? So when I talk about issuance, it's about registering an individual, a citizen, and providing the ID. And then putting the ID to use means the verification part of it, right? So to get the service, I need to have myself verified. So that's the core. But to support this, we also have two additional product lines, which is NG, the NG stack, which has about 4 core modules to it. So there we have the mobile wallet and the web wallet, which can be used for verification. And then we have eSignet, which is another solution for, it's an OIDC-based application for verification and authentication. So there again, in very simple words, today, when you log into an online portal, the first thing you're supposed to do is set up a username and a password to get into it. But how simple would it be if it said login with Aadhaar, right? Or login with national ID. So that's what we're trying to do here. You can log in with any trusted ID, and the background layer that is running, in simple words, is eSignet. So it allows you to log in through any trusted ID.
For the sake of understanding, it is just like signing with Google.
Exactly, or maybe on similar lines, yes. So again, the essence of it is authentication. And at the end of it, again, you're aiming at reaching out to the society in terms of delivery of services, benefits and services. So I would say ID lifecycle management is what we look at, which is issuance and verification.
So this is a
Do you
technical.
want to add
Sorry?
anything? Or
Yeah, please.
Shashi, if you want to add anything?
No, I think he has questions. So
Okay.
we'll continue.
So if other government systems, operational systems like HRIS systems, CRMs, and all these other systems, in order for them to use your authentication platform, in technical terms, how would the connection be set up?
So I'll let you know that. So it's not our system; it is your system, and how you're going to deploy in your.
Once it is deployed
premise.
here, it's our
That's
system.
what it's going to.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to create the regulations for it and operate it. So from our side, we have a partner management portal that we have built in the open source and provided. So your companies, for example, your telecom wants to authenticate, they would go and ask for a license in the Sri Lankan government. And within the government, they may have various approval processes that they have built in. Now, based on the approval process, they would finally give you a license key and say, hey, you are a telecom in this country, and we approve you to use the national ID as a way of authentication. So you provide that. So that's the first step. So you get a key, how to tell that you are allowed to use this key. The next step is there are a lot of open source protocols and libraries that are available in multiple programming languages, which are called as OpenID Connect protocols and OpenID Connect libraries. So you could pick up any one of those libraries that is available in the open source, and that will let you connect to eSignet, which is the primary authentication portal, with the key that is given by the Sri Lankan government. Using the library that is available in the open source or with your commercial partner, you could use that library, and then that will let you connect to the eSignet, which is going to run in Sri Lanka. So I'll let you connect. And all the important pieces in the connect is the key that the government has approved for you. As long as you could keep that key safe and secure, that key identifies who you are within the access, and then you will reach out to our APIs, the individual, and at the end of the verification, based on whatever is the policy that the Sri Lanka has, at the part of approval has told that you're allowed to get the photograph, then you get the photograph. If they say you're not allowed to get the photograph, you can get only the name, you would get only the name. So whatever is the policy behind the scene, you would get it. And now, of course, there is a user consent as well. It's not that the government said you can get the name and you would get it all the time. The user gets to know, I'm going to send the name to this particular telecom company. Are you okay with it? And the user selects, yes, I'm okay. And only then the detail is shared.
This only happens in the smartphones, I guess.
No, it happens on the browser as well as the smartphone.
Yeah.
In both the cases.
So basically, it's similar to when we install a new app. When the first time we run it, we get a screen with the permissions, and we can just say yes and no.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
but if that particular information is mandatory by the receiving organization, then we won't be able to go forward from there onwards. We have to provide those information. That is up to us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a service delivery problem, right? If there is a mandate that without photograph I can't issue a SIM card, you can deny it. He will not give you the SIM card. That's the most thing that's going to happen.
Okay. So I think we have covered most of the stuff. So quite a few left. So let's see, for example, what kind of access levels are defined in the platform. Can we define our own access levels? What are the existing access levels? And can certain individuals with a higher authority explore almost every data point that is available in the system? Can they see it? Okay.
There is no universal God power inside MOSIP. So every system is individual within it. We have an administrative module. As an administrator, you cannot control the data or view the data. You are allowed to set these policies. You are allowed to alter these policies. Who gets what data? Right? That is the maximum you can do within the system. Once the system is set up and running, it is closer to impossible for you to get God powers within our system. And it's very noticeable if you get it. To that extent, it is not easy for anybody to scale up and tell, hey, I can be everything. There is no everybody role.
So there's no super admin?
There is no super admin. You can become one by telling, this is this guy who's the partner. This is the same guy who's operator. This is the same guy who is an administrator. You can give all the roles to that individual and then make him superpower. Then he has a superpower. But remember, in spite of superpower, he doesn't have access to the data. He only have access to the administrative roles of the screens. He can administer the system better. He can see what is happening within the system. He could still not see the actual detail of the resident. He could not see that the user is trying to do an authentication. Now let me block him. He can't do that.
But they can see certain information, like if you want to so you are saying that even an admin cannot go and edit a person's name, that's blocked.
Absolutely not possible, impossible within the system.
Wow.
When I say impossible, remember it's cryptographically not possible to do, because there's a certain level of protection that it
so as citizens, we need to make sure that the point of data entry that's be done by ourselves or an authenticated agent, make sure they do it correctly, because it cannot be edited unless by ourselves.
Oh no, unless by yourself, yes. Again, we expect the government to not to edit this data in any form, in any nature, behind the scene. Remember, it is an open source project. So the government is powerful
They
enough.
can edit the code if they want.
You have good engineers. That is beyond what I can
Yes.
articulate for.
Yes.
Right.
So that's where we need the regulation, independent commissions to monitor and
Absolutely. You will need
So
all of it.
infrastructure
And
has
we
to be
also-
built.
Yeah, if you're using any of our libraries to make any change within our system, it immediately puts that into the audit records to tell this change happened. So you would know that the change happened. And when you go and log in into the resident portal of the application, you would see that I gave the data so and so date, and additionally somebody has given this data on this date. That will be visible for you. Then you can take up the action.
So audit trail can be accessed by several parties as well, and that can be hosted in different systems. So if somebody wants to delete a certain part of the audit trail, that is recorded somewhere else as well. So they won't have access to everything, every node that has the audit trail details to be deleted. If they want to do it, they have to do on all the places, not by just deleting one. It won't really matter. The data won't be lost. That can be done.
Yes, that can be done.
Perfect. I think I have cleared most of the doubts that we as Sri Lankans are having regarding this particular digital ID platform. So if there are any questions, you can come up with the comments, and then maybe we can get some answers for them. But I believe we have covered everything. So I thank you guys very much for giving the time and explaining this, even though some of the questions are not really intended for you to answer, but in order to get that transparency out, I had to ask them. So thank you so much, and we look forward to your help in implementing this. And then onwards, I think our engineers are very capable, and they will deliver the service to their citizens, to their countrymen. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank you. All the best, guys.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
ලංකාවේ උන් එතකොට ජීවත් වෙලා හිටියොත් ගයි ඔය උළුවස්සේ ගියා පැත්තට ගියාම තමයි රාවණා බුදියන් ඉන්න තැන තියෙන්නේ.
සර් කැන්සල් කරන්න නම් එපා. මං එන මග විනාඩි 2කින්.
ඇත්තටම කියනවා නම් උන් ඉස්කෝලේ ගිය වෙලාවේ නිදා ගන්න වෙලාවේ මම පට්ටාදරේ වුණා. ලා මකලෝකේ අන්තිම last final conclusion act
www.slvlog.lk web අඩවියෙන් දැන් ඔබට නැරඹිය හැක.